I am joined today by Deb Kaplan. Deb is an organization performance consultant, coach, and Dale Carnegie trainer. With over 30 years of experience as a progressive learning and organizational development leader, Deb has worked with hundreds of organizations and thousands of employees in their transformational journeys. In addition, Deb happens to be a great family friend and someone I've had the pleasure of knowing well over a decade. Deb, thank you so much for being in my orbit and for joining me today on Cupalo Conversations.
Oh, Lauren, I would just say it's a pleasure. It's an honor, and it's so exciting. So I'm so thrilled for this, for you, and all that's happening.
Thank you.
I'm so excited to be here with you. Great.
Well, I'm excited to talk with you today about how to cultivate the next generation of leaders. Now, you've had a long journey with the Dale Carnegie training, and I want to know more about how you got into it, and also who the heck is Dale Carnegie? Now, I know him as the dude who wrote How to Win Friends and Influence People, but maybe not everybody does. So I'd love to hear more about your journey and also more about him.
That's great. Yeah, it's true. I mean, I'd learned about that dude also a long time ago. But what's interesting is the journey, the professional work-life journey, started with this vision of me becoming a broadcaster and, to be on TV and radio and do all this stuff. And I did have a stint on radio, in radio production, and then actually not all that long ago got into radio. But what I found was that I was selling radio advertising. By the way, it's big band music, which was awesome because I love that. And they also covered the New York Yankee baseball. And now if anyone's listening to this and you're thinking, oh my gosh, New York Yankee baseball, well, I'm from New York originally, so I thought that was a really sweet thing. So we got on, I realized I couldn't sell this stuff. I loved what we did, but I didn't understand. I was really young, did not understand what I needed to sell to a steakhouse in New Orleans, Louisiana, or so these businesses. And then what was interesting is while I was reading the newspaper back then, I saw this ad for Dale Carnegie. I thought, wow, I know about this name. My dad gave me that book, How to Win Friends and Influence People, when I was 18. And he just said, Deborah, you're going to need this. People always need someone else to be kind to them. They may not know it or appreciate it at the moment, but when it comes down to it, you got to be kind. So you need this book. It's like, this is pretty cool. So I wrote a note to the Dale Carnegie franchise owner saying, I know all about this. I'm so excited to be writing this to you. I am confident I can contribute to the aspirations of your business. I think that was almost word for word. Had a meeting with them. Was hired the following week. I told my radio advertising person, I said, listen, can you give me 3 months? We both know I'm not doing very well at this. He loved me. He was like, yeah, we'll keep you on until you find a job. So I did. And that's how that happened. And when I took the Dale Carnegie course, the evening of my first day was a session 1 of a then 14-week program. I looked at the trainer. I'm thinking, I can do that. I want to do that. That's what I'm going to do. And I never looked back. Wow. So that's how it started.
Wow.
And it wasn't about just the training piece. Certainly learning. And I was 24 years old, somewhere around there. And I thought, oh gosh, there's so much there. So what I learned was self-confidence. You can't have too much of that. I mean, if someone was giving it out on a street corner, I'd take it. As long as you're not using it disingenuously or to hurt anybody with sincere intent. Communication skills, people skills, leadership, and then this attitude control and stress management. I said, this is good. This is stuff that I need. And I just kept developing it. And that's when it just started to grow. And I learned more that many people need that too. So that was the baseline of that course. So that's the beginning of the journey of the Dale Carnegie learning and development journey, really.
But since we're talking about leadership today, I would love to know, what are the attributes of a leader?
Well, there are so many models about just leadership models, and it might be self-awareness, emotional intelligence, the idea of engaging. How can one engage followership? We're talking about sincere intent, humanity. Can they bring humanity to their organization? And leaders who are vulnerable, their humility is just in some ways front and center. They're not too proud. They're not going to say, oh, I've got to get everything right. So without my going into a leadership model, because there are so many elements of self-direction, certainly, you've got to grow others. You've got to care to grow others. You may want to think about what's your leadership legacy so that you are wired to share and help people grow. That's really huge these days. But those who are afraid to let go, afraid to share, that leader, if I could say anything, in addition to emotional intelligence, that leader who says, I want to help others truly grow and help them figure out their leadership journey. And that I then, or those leaders, get to leave a very positive legacy.
I love it.
Yeah, it's like a whole other chapter of leadership. So, but those leaders who learn that early, to share, to help, it starts with being on a team, just to support the team getting all the shots, or at least, assisting and not needing to be the one that gets it. Sorry, I'm in Celtics mood right now.
That's great. Well, how do organizations then build these high-performing teams?
Yeah. Well, it does start with it. Not always, Lauren, do we need to have like all these puzzle pieces all together. In fact, not too long ago, actually last week, I was flying back from Toronto and I caught this podcast from someone in Canada, and she was talking about the 70% rule. I mean, to even launch a business or do something, 70% should be enough, because if you've got all these pieces, everything just so super over-engineered, first off, it takes a heck of a long time to boil an ocean. Number two, you might be thinking you're going to be slower to launch, slower to get your idea out there, slower to grow the team. So get 70% of it there. So an organization really should know first off, their core values. And it's not a poster. They really understand, have supporting behaviors. Somebody who really embodies those core values does this. Just here are scenarios, our playbook, that people either go this way or this way, and if they respond this way, probably not a great fit. And fit's an interesting word these days, because we're not really looking for everyone to be a perfect fit. What does that mean? That means everyone's going to be the same, perhaps, and so we want that diversity of experience and perspective. So let's start with that notion of 70%. Get the core values done. That do not compromise on that. Then leaders are expected to model those in everything they do. They look to them to make decisions. They look to those core values for hiring decisions, coaching decisions, all sorts of things. I'm simplifying. There's a leadership model here too, but those core values. So to build that high-performing team, you've got to expect that you're growing a team that also embodies, or exemplars of, those core value behaviors. So core values, and expect it, and you've got to coach with backbone to be sure that if you see someone wavering, you got to get them to unwavering. And nothing should ever be punitive. So that leader who builds the high-performing teams, they're coaching to someone's vision. Like, each individual can have their own vision. What do you want? Why do you show up every day? Because they've got this one life. It's not the work-life balance thing. It's like work-life integration, or it's just show up and don't sell your soul. So why are you there? And if I, as the leader, know why each of my team members are there, then I could coach those. I could link and relate what I'm asking them to do to how they can accomplish their goals.
I think what's so interesting about core values is I've seen both in big and small organizations you brought up the poster, because I do think there is a cynicism from some folks who have seen them put on a wall and then not actually lived by leaders. And you touched on how leaders can bring their own kind of individual, it almost sounds like their own individual values to a team. They're sort of intrinsic motivators. And I'm curious, because in an organization, let's say with 7,000 employees, and you've got these core values, let's say there's a handful of them, but each leader is sort of coaching and leading to their, in their capacity, their strengths. How do you uphold the consistency of core values, especially at such a behemoth of an organization? Like, how do you accomplish that?
It's interesting. One of my past employers, with Dale Carnegie today, and it's my third and final round, proudly with that organization. But more recently, I spent some time with an organization. It's a software company. It's Rocket Software. The founder of the organization is somebody who felt very strongly that the core values, which are empathy, humanity, trust, and love. And this is like an IBM mainframe house. I mean, this is trust and love. And by the way, the founder's name is Andy Eunice. He's a guitar player, piano player, just wonderful musician, does great community work. So let's just go back to that question. How do we exercise empathy in an organization? That means we need to recognize that not everyone is the same and that they do have those individual visions. The trust, the love, what does that mean? And this humanity piece. So all that speaks to the fact that we are individuals showing up. Yet when we're on the field, if we do a sports metaphor, we're on the field, we have an understanding as to how we're going to work together. We have an understanding about our unique strengths. We've got to build expertise for everyone, and just be sure that if someone's got their unique, intrinsic values, but some unique set of values, if it's in conflict with the organization's core values, that person needs to have the wherewithal to know that it's team first. And I don't mean by compromising themselves. And I'd say for even me, is if the organization's core values are not in conflict with my individual values, then I can show up freely as myself and aspire to whatever those goals are. So it's more of a, I can suspend my personal values over here for a minute, because I know none of this is going to compromise my integrity or my own values. Did I answer your question?
Yeah. So I want to go back to, I guess, how to cultivate this next generation is you mentioned, we need these core values in place. That's like the foundation if you're building a house. And then you need the people who can, going to the field metaphor, can take the ball, take those core values and really kind of carry them down the field. How does an organization though help set those leaders up to really know the direction they're headed? I mean, to make sure that outside of here's the architecture of core values, here's the framework.
There's it's an important question, because we've got the direction. What's the direction? What are our, and this could change every few years, but what are the core strategies that we're out for? What is our vision for what we want to accomplish, which is different than mission? What purpose and mission do we serve? And if we can equip our leaders with the opportunity to truly explore what the mission is and what that means to them personally and professionally, where we're going, what that vision is, strategically. And the vision does shift every few years. The vision, you achieve it, okay, what's next, right? The limitless horizon. And then there's the strategic initiatives. I need to be carrying the torch as a leader for those strategic initiatives and hold them bright, so that I can then, if you think about this, Lauren, there's build vision. You got to build vision. You got to build alignment, and then you've got to, organize the team. You've got to enable success. So if I'm not clear on the vision and I'm not building alignment, I don't even know how to build alignment because I don't have the vision. That's going to be tricky. So with all the people, different functions, whether it's the HR function, the IT teams, or all the software R&D teams, whatever it is, let them find their personal link to, I know why I'm showing up every day to drive this mission forward, and personally I'm deriving some meaning. So that leader who builds high-performing teams for that next generation of leaders, the next generation should feel free to express themselves, to say, this means something to me. Or, hey, leader, can we talk about how this can really connect with what I want to accomplish in my career? And those leaders today that leader legacy are needing to create that space for that conversation. And it's a lot of the work that I'm doing today, these days. So that's really key. And that next generation, I'm excited about the next generation. I'm excited about the passion with which they show up every day. I'm excited about how clear, more often than not, they are on the lifestyle choices they have in terms of how they want to spend their time, how they want to treat their bodies, how they, just well-being. And it's different from a lot of the folks that are more my generation when we started. I happen to be somebody who I believe is forever young. But just the same, are you tracking with me on this? This is just so important, so that that leader is going to truly build that high-performing team. They need to pause and say, what really matters? And I can't lead today on the model that someone might have led me years ago, although I was quite fortunate, had some great leaders. So that high-performing team piece is just individuals, and then continue to talk with one another, continue to check in always.
You touched on motivation. So
Yeah.
what about the disenchantment? Because I'm sure as much as I can tell your enthusiasm is palpable, have you also noticed the disenchantment permeating some of this generation, given where we've been, especially in the last couple of years, the market, especially I have my very, kind of specialized focuses within technology. And I've seen a lot of layoffs with COVID, people going remote, and then this sort of funky return, some of us going back to the office, some of us a hybrid. There's inconsistency in some of those policies. Have you noticed a frustration on the part of the next generation where there is maybe a lack of hope, or a lack, and I don't know if hope's the right word, but there's a frustration on the part directed at corporate America. Have you seen that in your work, and what are you doing to dispel that too?
Yeah, your question has a lot to do with, I'd say, a couple of areas. It's first, do we really understand what's going on, what people need to work? What do they need to feel as though they are performing at a high level? And then there's this discrepancy, or misalignment many times, with what the organization believes they need. So I'm talking specifically from the hybrid piece, the remote working. And then I'll, as far as layoffs and the other realities, I want to refer back to something in a minute, but I'll do this. Let's just address the remote working first. There is a, in the beginning, I'd say, of what was it? Give me a year, 2020. 122, the back to work strategies were starting to be talked about inside organizations. And right out of the bat, there was, just what are the elements of trust within an organization? Do they really trust? And some organizations say, I really want people, to be here on site. And then people are like, okay, I'll go on site. But when I go on site, no one's there. I still am not talking to anybody. So why am I there? Yeah. And so it really has, it's almost been like a yarn was all wound up, and they said, okay, this is what we're going to do. And as soon as COVID lifts, we're going to just unravel it, and everyone's going to be just where they were. Well, that's not the way it is, because people have discovered so much more about their capabilities working differently. And actually, the leaders who get it, have that it factor, they've learned that their workforce is also so much more capable. Wow, we didn't realize we could perform at such high levels. So I'd say disenchanted, yes. Wow, I'm really surprised that my employer might not support me still working remotely or whatnot. I think what I'm seeing, what we're seeing, because by the way, we're doing a lot of work to support remote settings, is that organizations and the leaders are learning I'd say they're new skills, but also like an attitudinal enrollment around, how can I look at this differently? So there's that continuous learning that even a leader of 25 years is saying, all right, it looks like I have to get out of the way. How can I get out of the way and still be others focused, no matter where they're working? Now, if you're a construction industry, someone's got to show up to the job site and build. So that's that part. Then part B, back in 2008, this happened. There was a crash, and lots of organizations were very quick to let go. A couple of things that are really interesting is I'm seeing a lot of organizations saying, we want to be very careful about those decisions we're making, and that we don't, we ruffled those roots of trust if they were an organization that was around then. And if they're newer, they don't want to ruffle the roots of trust. We've got to do this in a way that's communicative, that's transparent, that's open. So if that individual who believes their role is being let go, that they could also lead from where they stand with that notion of transparency, and still be appreciative of what that organization's been able to do for them or with them over the years, and how it's enabled them to apply their skills, but to say, all right, this is a reality. So I would say, take a positive frame on that and lead from where you stand, and do whatever you can to refrain from having that view that something was done to you. It's really, it's hard. It's hard. And then on the other side, the organizations, if they're making these decisions, and I'm a fan of generative AI, and I'm a true fan. I think it's important also that employees and managers, or hiring managers or organizational leaders, allow themselves to be thoughtful in their process and nothing is done in a hasty way, because back to generative AI, it does help us. And we also know that emotional intelligence that I spoke about earlier in terms of what makes an effective leader who grows a high-performing team, that same person, if they know that their emotional intelligence is high and their engagement skills are really strong, that generative AI still is going to ask people to check in their humanity, their empathy, their right into the equation. We inform it so much. So I think it's important for the employee to say, right now, if they're wondering if their position is in a precarious place, to really ask themselves right now, am I taking the time to develop my emotional intelligence, my interpersonal effectiveness? Can I disagree agreeably? Am I a gracious host of the process of conflict? Because that's what organizations really need. And if you take 10 IT, software developers, they all could do the same technical skills. Which of those have that other layer of interpersonal effectiveness? And those are the ones that the organizations are going to need.
No, I think that's a great point. And it leads into a question I wanted to ask you about.
Yeah.
Where does the personal responsibility come in? We've been talking about what an organization can do to set leaders up to be successful, but where's the responsibility on the part of the individual to cultivate their own leadership capacity? I think a lot of people do tend to toss it over the wall to their employer, to provide programs and training and leveling up and mentorship. But where is the individual's responsibility? How can people cultivate these skills outside of the workforce?
Well, first off, leading, what we're saying is leading's not a solo act. And that means, everyone's got to lead themselves. So you lead yourself, you could lead others, you could lead organizations if there's this journey of leadership. And there is a tremendous amount of self-accountability to, if this is what I want, am I going to lean in and do what I need to get there? And the throwing it over the fence, organizations, we don't want them throwing it over the fence. You've got to get better. It's up to you. But they are expecting individuals to lead their own career journey. The company will enable it. The company will support it. And I've been in that space within 3 organizations on leadership journeys or career development journeys. And if that individual has not checked in their passion, their commitment, I look at someone like you, Lauren, it's like you're unstoppable. And that's really key. And not unstoppable, like I'm going to steamroll people in the process, but just being so clear. And that's just really the key piece, so that if that organization sees someone with that kind of drive and passion, let's cultivate them, let's encourage them. And we no promises, but they could be in our next wave of leadership. And if you're not in an organization, just get those your trusted confidants around and say, look at me. I aspire to be X. What do you think I need? So I think it's, I'd say it's 100%. That individual's going to be 100%. Now, if they have a mentor, or don't have a mentor, get one. Get several.
What about conversely, where you have a leader who is, you would deem ineffective at leading? How should individual contributors coach up to their leader to tell them, I need something different? How do you navigate that?
Mm-hmm. Well, first off, we're not pointing fingers at anybody. You are in my way. You're not helping me grow. We got to just, reel that in. From that book, How to Win Friends and Influence People, let's just take that book for a minute. There are 3 sections of interpersonal skills. And let's face it, it takes interpersonal effectiveness to coach up, to say, hey, I feel like there's some roadblocks here. And you are absolutely right. If it's crafting vision, build alignment, and enable success, that's exactly what managers need to do. So if it's not happening, let's remember the first set of, I'll get you this set of principles, but the first set of principles, it's about building rapport. And it starts with don't criticize, condemn, or complain. That's tough. And then the ninth principle in that first set is about make the other person feel important and do it sincerely. So let's be sure that we're really connecting, and let's acknowledge what could be going on for that manager, my manager. That's not all that easy right now. What could be going on? And it's just so that empathy, it's role agnostic, it's level agnostic. Make sense? So there's that rapport piece. Then the next set of principles is all around gaining willing or even eager cooperation. And it starts with, it's similar to the first principle, it starts with just to get the best of an argument is avoid it. Don't get into one. And if you think you've made a mistake, gee, maybe I shared this when I first came on board, I've rethought it. Never ever tell your manager or even someone you're wrong. There's a way to get at it without doing that you're wrong. But learn more about what's going on for them. Get them to do a lot of talking. Try honestly to see things from their point of view, and even throw down a challenge. Perhaps you could say, manager, in what ways can we? It's a really great opener. In what ways can we collaborate and co-design the way we work together moving forward? In what ways can we? And so that it's refreshing, because that way you do have to help your manager understand you. But that whole notion of it's not a solo act, so help your manager understand you. And if you're the manager, help your team members understand you. The last set, specifically to your question, is how do I lead change? And that might mean behavioral change. So to even start with, manager, I can really appreciate the pressure you're under. And I can only imagine what it would be like. And just to say, here's something, let them save face and give them some tips about you, and ask them for input. Ask questions. Don't tell them, you got to lead me better. You got to pave the way. No one's going to, that's only going to, put them in a vice. Make sense?
Yeah. And I guess I'm wondering, what are your thoughts on, have you read Kim Scott's Radical Candor with this sort of... I
have. I listened.
Okay.
I listened. Yeah. It's a great book. And it is about, there's a way, you know what? The level of trust that you need for radical candor is pretty high. You could develop trust by being radically candid too.
Yeah.
You've got a choice though. Who are you, and what wake do you want to leave behind every conversation or interaction you have? And do you know enough about the person or group you're communicating with that there's like a shelf life of the conversation? And what's going to be left behind? And is it going to serve you well? What do you want people to say about you, buzz about you, behind your back, or in front of you?
I've made the mistake. It's interesting as you were walking through those 3 principles, and I was thinking how often I've made the mistake over my career of assuming a manager has all the answers and that they're the ones who should approach the conversation with empathy. I'm the one who threw a lot over the wall. And I've changed that in the last couple of years to really take a lot more accountability. But there can be this difficult dynamic where you have what feels like a superior to an inferior, for lack of a better way of saying it, but this inferior and this, sort of dynamic. And yet you're saying for that person in that individual contributor role or in that reporting up structure to really come with a great deal of maturity, a great deal of accountability. And it seems like there's so much work that person must do on their end to really cultivate those skills. Cause there's a myriad of skills there to communicate in that capacity.
Yeah. And it is the art and science of being introspective. And first off, good for you. Congratulations, because you're not the only one. I mean, I had those experiences too, where you think, Deb, really, if you played that back, you would know exactly what you need to do differently next time. You talked about maturity, or just no one really does it alone, does anything alone. I just think about all the successes or even the challenges. I mean, I've learned so much by the challenges, things that didn't go well, and I was still doing that with people. Like we all didn't do so well on something, but we all learned and grew from that. But we had the communication channel, which we need.
Yeah, I think that's an excellent point. I've been very critical of the term solopreneur because I don't buy into the idea that we do any of this alone.
Right.
But I do think introspection, as you touched on, is inherently alone in a lot of the journaling, meditation, the reading. Of course, when you turn externally and you have a dialogue or you seek mentorship, but there is a lot that fundamentally for work, would you say, in introspection that is done alone? And I guess so I would ask, do you believe that there's a lot that could be done and needs to be done alone? And then my second question to this is, are you concerned, given the generation we're in and the world we're in, there's so much noise, there's so many distractions, introspection's not the sexiest thing, or to turn off from all of the noise? Do you think we're at a more difficult threshold moment where introspection's made more difficult by that?
Oh, yeah. So the first piece about being alone, I agree. Solopreneur. We do need that. You can have an intrapersonal relationship, which means like with yourself. You can. All right. That's do I understand myself? But I do believe that noise, if people can learn how to know what to focus on and be brave, say no to interacting on, it used to be say no to drugs. Now it's a say no, say, you know what, this is really important. I have another commitment, or it's really important and it's not aligned with my priorities, or so it's really going to come down to how clear people are and how passionate they are about the priorities to help them manage the noise. And the introspection to say, I got to carve out some time to be sure I'm thinking this through. That's hard. I mean, it's hard. I've been at this for a long time. That's not something that comes easily to me. I turn that on.
I could use more of that.
Well, because listen, I have preferences for extroversion. Talk about the noise. I impose it on myself. It's like, right? And so I'm hopeful that for those who are looking for new work, you're currently employed, or whatever it is that your listeners may be going through, wherever they are in their journey, just really get clear on their vision. Not only communicate that vision, test it out, get people's feedback on that based on what you know me. How do you think I can make that happen? And for that next generation of leaders to note that they should have a group of people that really believe in them, that can challenge them, even their friends, really believe in them, challenge them, and say, go for it. Or, to be honest with yourself, you really should pick up on this. So we might need our friends to help us reflect.
Yeah, that's great advice, especially to someone like me who's a recovering, or I don't know if recovered yet, but a people pleaser. So I think that's important.
I think that's that's another tough one. This whole people pleasing. You can still be really kind and be well thought of when you say not yet, or I'm saying yes to what you want to accomplish. I'm not the right one. Here's someone you should meet.
Yeah. No, I think that's excellent advice. And on that note, one last question for you. There was a lot that you gave for great advice to this next generation of leaders. And just recently, as you mentioned, finding that tribe of people who can help support you as you're trying to achieve a mission. Is there any other closing remarks, piece of advice that you have for people listening, for the leader in them to become more of, I guess, the leader they want to be, the person they want to be?
I've always said to just really be curious and think yes when you make observations of other leaders. They're different than you, even in different fields, completely different function. If you're an IT related technical engineer, software engineer, look at someone who is a rock band leader or something. Really look at and say, what are they doing? Look at how they connect with each other and find something. So as you go through your day-to-day, take a look at your interactions. In leadership, lead from where they stand. A leader could be that person who just says, yes, I'll figure out how, and they're not a a leader by way of HR level, people manager, or anything along that line. So just keep your antennas up, be curious, think yes about what they're doing, even though it might seem so far removed from what you would do because it's not your style. But what do you admire? And actually, just parenthetically, if there's something we see in someone that we do admire, like Lauren, what I see in you, I just really admire your vision. You're a person of vision and how you just engage the cylinders, the gears, and you're like, I'm going to make it happen. And it's fierce and positive. So when you make an observation of someone, just say, how do I work with that? So when I said parentheticals, go ahead and do that. But if I can acknowledge that someone's got that, I don't mean to be speaking about myself, but when we acknowledge or see something in someone else, we probably have some trace of that for us to even pick up that signal. So think, yes, that can be me. Yes, that likely is me. And say, oh, I can never do that. No, think the other way. Because it's like if you drive a Volkswagen, you're driving down the highway, all of a sudden you start seeing all these Volkswagens. It's this sense of familiarity, but there's something in you that's enabling you to acknowledge that it's part of you. So to be a leader now, and as you journey on, next level leadership of an organization or in your own career, even if you're we didn't touch on this, but even as an expert leader, you choose to take the expert track, people are still looking to you for that guidance.
Well, and I would say, Deb, because you recognize these leaders all around and individual contributors and these expert leaders, you have and you've cultivated through many years of hard work a great leadership capacity, and I would say you're absolutely fierce. And so I thank you for that compliment, but I would like to give it back to you and say that, being in your atmosphere, you're infectiously positive, and you've never stopped pushing yourself throughout your career. Through all the years that I've known you, you continue to impress me tremendously with how poised you are and how observant, and that curiosity it's evident in everything you do. So thank you for sharing so many of these insights with me and people listening today. I think there's so many good nuggets in here and so much I have to learn and so much I wish I had known, but we can only march forward. So
that's it. Thank you, Lauren, very much. It's been a pleasure.